So, hello everyone, welcome. I appreciate that you are being to our session. We want to thank you for your participation in this session, okay? Let me introduce myself. I am Erasto Meneses, Head of Lean Digital Transformation at the Lean Institute Brazil, and I will be the moderator for this session, okay? So I need to bring the first tip for you, folks. Remember to ask your question in the QA section, okay? If you look in the chat, the fourth to the right, the fourth option is the QA. You can use this option to make all your questions, okay? You can use the chat as well, but it's not the right function to the right way, okay? So try to use the QA section and I will get all your questions to bring to our speaker, okay? Let me introduce our speaker right now. Today we have the opportunity to bring to us Paolo Caroli to our session. Paolo Caroli is the author of the bestseller Lean Inception, How to Align People and Build the Right Product. His most recent contribution is the Phone Retrospective, which brings together numerous techniques for conducting effective retrospective. And as a principal consultant of the two works, he has helped dozens of companies transforming themselves. So, Caroli, my friend, thank you for being here with us, and the stage is all yours. Good luck, man.
Thank you, Erasto, and welcome everybody, and a great event for all of us. So, Leanception, how to align people and build the right product. First, about me, I'm Paulo Caroli. I work at ThoughtWorks. I'm a consultant. I'm a lean and agile consultant. I have wrote quite a few books, and today I want to talk to you about this topic, Lean Inception, one of the topics from my heart. So on this presentation, I'm going to cover those 5 steps. First, we'll talk a little bit about Lean Startup. Where does it come from? What's up with Lean Startup? Then you talk about experiments and MVP, the short for minimum viable product. Then I'll give you quite a few MVP examples, and we'll go in a little more detail on Leanception. And at the end, as Erasto said, we're going to have a Q&A session. So Lean Startup. Lean Startup is a movement that came from Silicon Valley. I used to live in Silicon Valley from 2000 to 2008. I worked on quite a few startups. Well, unfortunately, back on those years I lived there from 2000 to 2008, there wasn't such a thing as Lean Startup. But on 2011, Eric Ries published his book called The Lean Startup, which was amazing, that brought some good knowledge to all of us on how successful enterprises were working. As a centerpiece of that book, it is the cycle, the build, measure, learn cycle. So as a startup or any organization that has some initiative that wants to be successful, how do we work? We work following this cycle. There is an idea, something we think might be useful, might be good for our clients or customers. We build the minimal viable to validate that idea. So we work on the cycle, build something really small to experiment, to learn fast, the minimal viable product, put in the hands of the users, learn with their usage, and based on that, you keep on evolving your product, your solution. The challenge I had as a consultant, I really like, I was specialized on inceptions, the beginning of an agile project. And then the challenge I have is like how to align a group of people and decide what is this MVP. So the Leanception book and this presentation is about this, how to align people to build the right product. In my view, Lean Startup movement and the style of work in this build, measure, learn cycle complements old practice, the project management practice. So on the project world, we had this iron triangle where we need to talk about the scope, the overall project length, the time that's going to take, we need the quality, and what is the cost. But now we work on a product world, it's product thinking. We need to think about the product that, we will satisfy the needs of our users and achieve the goals for our business. But we are not going to think about the overall, the big project. No, we need to figure out what is the MVP, what is the minimum thing, and we learn with the users, with the usage, and we keep on evolving the product thinking this way with those cycles, build, measure, learn. And then I need to talk about experiments and MVP. They're very similar, but I want to share a definition for each one of those. Experiment. Experiment is a test, a trial, a validation procedure. It's something very simple, or many simple things that provide learning for you or a group of people about some idea, some hypothesis, some principle, some supposition. An MVP, which kind of very similar to experiments, but it has the word P. A minimal viable product is the simplest version of a product that you put in the hands of the user. You made it available to validate a business idea. It's very important to bring to your attention that both of those, experiment and MVP, they work on that really fast build, measure, learn cycle. If we're talking more about discovery, learning, that period, the phase, or activities that you do for learning, you should run lots of experiments, something fast, simple, gather. You need more learning before you make the business decisions. If you're closer to delivery, where you're already building something, some project was approved, like, okay, we're going to build, don't build the whole thing, build the minimal viable product to verify if you're going in a good direction. But the MVP, for me, it's something that you already put in the hands of the user. So there is a P of a product. Perhaps it's incomplete as per the product vision, but it's something small that the user can use and provides you feedback. Am I going in a good direction? What learning am I getting to decide what to build next? So the MVP, you think about experiment, like you can experiment what's valuable to the business, what will the users love, what's feasible to be done by the engineers or whoever is building that product. In my world, digital product usually. But the MVP, you need to have those three perspectives. So MVP, yes, it must be on this intersection, what's valuable, what's usable, and what's feasible. But it's pretty hard to figure out that intersection. And if you think about MVP, you need to think about, it is a thin slice that has all those perspectives. It's feasible, it's valuable, it's usable, and it has a wow factor. It's really important, the wow factor. Why? Because the MVP is an incomplete product. So yes, it is incomplete. Like the user is still missing quite a lot of features, but whatever the user put their hands on, they're like, whoa, I like it, I want more. I'm going to give you feedback, and I'll provide extra information so you decide what should I build next. Be very careful not to build MVP. Like I come from the software industry. Oh, let me just build the platform first and all the APIs and all of these that later on someone will build a product with it. No, MVP, it's a thin slice that whatever you provide is feasible, valuable, usable, and it has the wow factor. And you think from the internal parts of a digital product, I used to be a software architect. And as a software architect, you need to think about all the pieces, right? But your MVP is not like, oh, maybe those internal components here, that's the minimal viable. No, not at all. As I told you before, MVP is like a thin slice, something that the user, the final user, can use. Perhaps your internal architecture, it's still incomplete. Perhaps all the components are incomplete because you're still validating if what I'm proposing, what I'm building will satisfy the needs of the user. If it does satisfy, yes, then you bring your solution to a full architecture. But like if your work for MVP is the minimal viable to validate a business idea. So internal parts, yes, they might still be incomplete. And if you're from the business perspective, I really like those sales funnels. This one is the R, the pirate metrics. Because as a salesperson, as a business person, they need to think about, okay, how do we make money out of this digital product or out of this solution? But when you go and as a group, you decide what is the MVP, it should not be like, oh, the MVP only proves that we're attracting people. No, somehow the MVP needs to prove your users, they're going through this funnel. It's very important. Perhaps the MVP is not showing, oh, we're making enough money. Not yet, it's MVP. But it must show that from whatever, 1,000 people that gets to our website or that downloads our app, you have at least that percentage that use it, use that feature, and recommends our product. So as a business person, you need to figure out, how do I prove we're moving in a good direction? Not exactly how do I prove I'm making a lot of money, but how do I generate numbers that show us that we're moving in a good direction? How do I generate numbers to provide learning for the business so we make a smart decision about the next step? Let me give you a few MVP examples. So the first one is the cake and the cupcake. When I did my master thesis years ago, I used to talk about the layer architecture, and we would build software as we do cake. We would plan the whole software, the whole cake. And years ago in the 90s, give me 1 year, I'll build you a cake, and at the end, I would give you the cake. When I moved to US, 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, user stories applied. We start working with more agile methodologies. Well, I would still plan the whole cake, but I would give you slice by slice. And I was happy working like this. But in 2011, when I started working with MVP, that cake metaphor stopped working. In fact, we're building cupcakes. It's the minimal viable to validate if you're going in a good direction. It's not a slice of a cake. It's a cupcake. In fact, you build more than one cupcake. One is going to be an orange cupcake. The other is a chocolate cupcake. And you put in front of the users. And then you have the learning. Wow, my users on this neighborhood, they prefer orange cupcake. But please notice the cupcake has the wow factor, like the cherry on top. Every cupcake has it. It's not only at the end of the cake, the cupcake has it. So MVP is like a cupcake, not a slice of a cake. Well, an example from when I lived on Silicon Valley, Zappos. Tony had an idea. This was 1999. He liked buying tennis shoes. Usually he would buy them on catalogs. They would put on your mailbox a few catalogs. And I had this idea, what if I have a website to sell tennis shoes? It's not very common to buy tennis shoes online, but he had this idea. How did he prove it was a good idea? With MVP. He got the domain zappos.com. By the way, Zappos is because of zapatos in Spanish. So he got zappos.com. He had a digital camera, took a picture of some tennis shoes in a store nearby, put on this very simple web form, picture of the shoe, description, same price as in the store, and a very simple payment method. People would buy. He would buy the 10 shoes and ship it to the person. A simple website like this, he proved $1 billion enterprise like Zappos with an MVP. This was a minimal viable product. Another example from Mark Zuckerberg. He created something he named thefacebook.com. Very simple. This is 2005, 2006. Simple web frameworks to build simple web applications. He created something super simple, and he sent an email only to his classmates on Harvard. He was studying Harvard in the second year, and said, hey, do you want to share the picture from the weekend party? And people used. So he was like, build, measure, learn. Then he met the Brazilian, Eduardo, that was studying economics in Harvard. And then they tried, let's share the same thing with people, your colleagues from economics department. And then they shared with everybody from computer science and economics. Then with anyone that had an email at Harvard. And then anyone with email at Harvard and MIT. And then Harvard, MIT, Stanford. Then anyone with an email address in a university in US. And then they opened to university in Europe. They were running lots of build, measure, learn cycle, validating every single feature idea. Another great example, iPhone. When Steve Jobs released iPhone, the very first one, that was an incomplete product. iPhone did not have GPS. GPS technology was available. The phone call quality was much worse on iPhone than the other ones. Guess what? Steve Jobs was not validating this aspect. He was validating if people would use those little apps, the new interface, which, by the way, he sent an email to some developers in Silicon Valley. I got that email, say, hey, do you want to build apps for Apple? We're going to have the Apple platform, and you can have your apps running on all the new devices that we're having. The Apple platform was not ready, the apps platform. But he was validating if developers would answer that email and say, hey, I want to develop, where is the contract? How do I build it? The iPhone 1 was an MVP, was a very incomplete and successful product at the same time. A great example from Brazil, EasyTax. Vinicius and Thales, they won second place on the startup weekend in 2011. How did Vinicius validate their business idea? He got a domain, easytax.com.pr. We call tax for you. What's your name? Your phone number, your address, and a simple button. Call me a tax now. That button had an HTML code that would send a mail only to Vinicius. And with this, they bought Bing AdWords for one neighborhood in Rio de Janeiro, and they validated, yes, people are willing to call tax online. Those are a few examples of MVP. How would you build a bridge MVP style? Well, don't build the whole concrete bridge and here's the best spot. No, let's measure. Put a few wooden beams on different spots. Maybe the software architect say, hey, we should build the bridge here. The business person should build here. The UX people will tell you, oh, here or there. Put a few wooden beams and measure. Whenever you have more people crossing, that's the place to build the bridge. And then you evolve the bridge from MVP to MVP. Now a bicycle go through, a motorbike, more than one person at the same time. Now a car go through, and this must not happen. What happened here? Well, people did not do a research. There are truck drivers on this region. They should also cross the bridge. Whose fault is it? Everybody. You should have UX research, user experience research. The business people should be aware of this. The technology people should not allow a bridge to fall if there is a truck going through it. Well, but it's MVP, so don't allow a truck to get into the bridge. That's part of the MVP. If it is MVP, you must not allow that to happen as well. So yes, how do you decide the MVP? It's hard. You need people from the business, with business perspective, people that understand the users, UX, user experience perspective, and technical perspective. But usually each one of these people point on a different direction, and you need to find that intersection, the MVP. So first thing to be very clear, it's not easy to figure out what is the MVP. It's easy to show examples from Zappos, Facebook, because after the fact, but before the fact, it's not easy. That's where Inception come into play. So what's Inception? It's a collaborative workshop that will help a group of people, typically an agile team, a squad, the product team, people from business, UX, and technology perspective, come together, understand, align, and plan the building of a lean product. So Inception brings together those two approaches. From one side, it is the lean startup style of working, where I don't know what the users want. I'll build something and put on their hands, and I will learn with the real usage. From the other side, I will make decisions based on the user experience. So based on how the user is using, how the user answers my research, I'll decide what to build next. I don't know where you start from, if you're a more lean startup or if you're more design thinking, user-centric design, but you get on work on this cycle where you learn from the users and then you build what? The minimal viable next step to validate if the users will like it. And then you put on their hands. And then you get more learning, and then you never leaves this cycle. You're always evolving your product, your solution on very firm steps based on the user, real usage, and their feedback. That's working effective with MVP, with lean startup and design thinking. So here are a few pictures from Inception when they used to be presential. Nowadays, for the past year and a half, I've been running remote Inceptions. Every other week, I'm on a remote Inception. Here's the typical agenda. It's a 5-day collaborative workshop. Everything starts with a kickoff and with a showcase. Stakeholders, people that are really interested on the result of that initiative, but don't have time. They say, sorry, I don't have agenda, Carol, to be with you the whole week. Perfect, you're a stakeholder. Come on the beginning of the week to tell us why we're here. Come back at the end of the week and see what the group, the squad, the product team, or the group that is going to work on this initiative came up as a plan for the overall product strategy and the MVP. And then every day you go through those activities. The first day, it's more the vision from the business perspective, but everybody's together. Together we write the product vision, what it is, what it's not, what it does not do. On day 2, we'll talk about the personas, how they live, how they behave, and their step-by-step to fulfill their needs. On day 3 is the brainstorming. We look, hey, which features or activities should we build to satisfy the needs of the personas and their journeys and achieve the goals of the business. And then we do a review from the 3 perspectives, the business, the user experience, and the technical perspective. And on day 4, usually a Thursday, we look back at the user journey and say how to improve their life experience with those feature ideas. And then we put this in order in a sequencer. And on that sequencer, we identify here, we have the MVP, the very first step that we should validate. Does this make sense? Will the user behave the way we think they will? And then you have the MVP canvas where you put the strategy in one canvas, and then you have the showcase at the end. So that's the Inception. What happens before? Well, remember I told you about experiment? You need to run lots of experimentation. It's not that a business request come and go straight to Inception. No, a business request come, we need to get more learning. And then we validate your experiments, and you have that constant communication, customer research with your users, with your customers. And then you might run an Inception from time to time. So usually this is what's happening nowadays in the world. We do have continuous discovery and continuous delivery. We're continuously learning what our users want, what will impact our business. We're continuously learning this through lots of experiments. And then maybe perhaps from time to time, you need a collaborative workshop where you bring those people together and say, okay, what's the big vision and what's the very first step, the MVP? And then you go on working on your continuous delivery. So to finish this talk and start the conversation on the Q&A, I want to leave you with this message. Think big, start small, learn fast. Work very effectively with MVP, Lean Startup, Design Thinking, and Leanception. So let's go to the Q&A. Before you go, a big thank you. There's a book on it, the Leanception book. You find it on Amazon. There is a training that myself and a few colleagues very experienced on it to run. And then the blog post on this presentation is also available on the website and this QR code. Now with you, which question do you have on this topic?
Okay, Mr. Caroli, thank you so much, man. Congrats for your awesome presentation and for the knowledge that you bring for all of us. Everybody knows how it's difficult to connect business and to connect the engineer process or product development into a company, you know, and more than that is connect the customer perspective. Okay, so in a lean perspective, we are looking for the value from the customer perspective, you know. So this is awesome. We use it to use the lean inception to discovery, and is awesome. So let's take a few questions, okay, Caroli? The people here is a lot of questions. Let's take some of them. I will take the first one that was putting on from Augusto, okay, Caroli? So sometimes you need to stabilize the process before talk about the product. Is this correct? Talk about MVP to solve process problem?
Wow, really good question, right? MVP, you should be focused on the what. You know, what are we building? You know, the MVP is the P of a product. So the way I prefer is like stabilize the process before. You know, the world should not start from inception. If you're in a lean transformation, let's first understand what is the overall transformation. Let's stabilize the process, and perhaps for every small group or business unit that's going to work on an initiative, then you run a leanception to figure out what is that initiative. Said that, you might use some of the activities that are shared on the Leanception book. There are some people that use them to help with transformation, not the whole pack to figure out what is the MVP at the end, but I get pieces of those to help with transformation. You know, for example, the sequencer. You have a transformation, we need to understand in which order we're gonna go on the activities to run this transformation of the organization. The sequencer activity might help you with that. Good question, though.
Really nice, really nice. So here is another question that is, I think, is more to the right scenario that we are living, and this is: what are the advantage and disadvantage of lean inception online instead of face-to-face?
Yes. Well, first, the big disadvantage: you don't have lunch together, you don't have coffee time together. We're missing that human connection, right? That's the biggest disadvantage. So if you are a new group of people working together, you have to consider how we're going to create those connections. You know, if Leanception is the first thing you do, on the Leanception, you need to have time for energizers, for team building activities as well. If the team has worked together, perhaps it's fine. Remote works out really nicely because it's easy. You know, before it was difficult to plan the flights and then the room, you know, to make sure we have available room. Now it's pretty easy because we have one main room, and then I can use as a facilitator breakout room features pretty easy, you know, and now let's split in 2 rooms and come together. So remote inceptions are being very effective. The only piece of advice I give is pay attention to the human connection. How are we going to compensate this? We're very efficient at work now with the remote tools, but how do you compensate the human interaction part that we must do? When it was presential, the Leanception was really good because people would come together to one location. So you get the benefit of we're aligning on the MVP and have a really useful plan for the product and the MVP. On the other hand, we'd create strong relationships because we're in a collaborative workshop, we're having lunch together, we're debating what we're going to build together, and that creates that human bond that's very useful. So now we need to compensate that human bond part with other activities, team building activities.
And actually, Caroli, I think the big challenge is the hybrid session. You know, when you have people or everybody coming into a room and few guys or few persons into a online session. You know, I think this is the big challenge. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I totally agree. The same happen on retrospectives. If you have a mixed group, let's say, 8 people are presential and 2 are remote, everybody must be remote. Exactly. I don't care, we're sitting in the same room, everybody put their headsets and treat everybody equal. Otherwise, the group that's together will talk, will create the human connection. Even the brainstorming is more fluid if you're presential, and the ones that are remote won't be able to participate. If one person is remote, everything uses remote, including the team building.
Yes, this is a good tips. Okay, nice. I think we have time. Let me take another shots for you, Caroli. What's the biggest challenge organization have in applying Lean Inception?
Well, the biggest challenge is, I'll get back there, is this. How do we stop everybody for a collaborative workshop? Unfortunately, we're not used to working collaboratively. We're used to working each one on their computer. Call me for a meeting. I'll go, we sit together on a meeting room for 1 hour, and then I go back to my computer. We got used to this weird working style. And then when you have a collaborative workshop like Leanception, sometimes difficult to get people agenda. But that solves another problem. Because if you're working on a, let's say, a software solution, digital product, you need one team work on it. So the team must be working on it like the whole time. So in that case, if people say, sorry, I cannot stay in one room with the whole team the whole time, it's an indication that like, well, we don't have a dedicated team. You know, somehow you're still working on that old style where, I work 20% on this project, 20% on that, 20% on that, and that it's that's a project smell. It's much better, much easier, much more successful to work on a product team where you have a dedicated team. So if you do have a dedicated team, people won't complain about running a Leanception because they are already a dedicated team. That's why the agenda have those different colors. The kickoff and the showcase, I do accept that stakeholders, they look after several initiatives. They don't have time to be with us the whole time. But as per the product team for that squad, that group of people that will be working on that initiative, they must be working together the whole week. In fact, not only the Inception week, week by week, they'll be sitting together, working together, remote or presentially.
Actually, Caroli, they are people who is talking about, are there some favorite tools, templates that you use for facilitating such Lean Inception workshops? Any videos showing these processes?
Great question. Yes, there are well, because of COVID, I started running them remote, and then 6 months later that I run quite a few of those. I had those templates and then I opened. So at caroli.org, in fact, Eras is going to share with you the link of the remote templates. So you do have remote templates on Miro, like on the most important tools, you can find remote templates. And I went to Brazil a few months ago, and then I made a video, explaining everything on Inception. The problem I was having, and I started having this problem in Brazil, a lot of people are using Inception, and we don't have enough people training. Well, we do have a lot of people experience, but Brazil is very large, so people, want to get their information on their time and watch the video 10 times, if they need. So we decided to record, all the tips and advice on Inception, which will be coming out in English as well. In Portuguese in December, in English in February. We're going to have like tips on everything on Inception. I feel guilt for that because I've been running those for 10 years. And I felt like it took me a a long time to translate everything to English. My apologies, but now even the videos, learning tips, the remote tools, everything is on Portuguese and English and in Spanish.
Nice.
So I'm catching up, with sharing with
Nice,
worldwide
Caroli.
now.
Folks, we have a bad news. Our time has come to end. Yes, I know it's sad, but the good news is that other sessions are coming, so it's a huge opportunity, so take all of them, okay, guys? People, Caroli, my friends, thank you so much for your participation, and for who is following us, do not forget to connect with the people throughout this journey, okay? Caroli, the last message to the folks who is coming?
Last message, think big, start small, learn fast. Thank you. A great
Thank you,
day
Carol.
for all of us, a
Take
great
care,
conference.
and we'll see you in the next opportunity. Bye-bye, folks.
Cheers.
Thank you so much.
Bye.